The Lord be with you. In this third unit of the course, we're going to be looking at issues of context and content in preaching. Long says that being a witness involves perception and proclamation, and we're turning now from perception to proclamation. Last time we talked about listening to the text, and in this particular learning unit on context, we're thinking about who we're preaching to and who we're listening on behalf of. Those, of course, are not two distinct moments in the exegetical process, but they're of a piece. It's not like only now we begin to turn towards our congregation. They have been there all along. In fact, here's a little tip. You might even call it a rule for preaching. When you're writing a sermon, pick 3 people in your congregation, real people that you know, and get a picture of those people. Put them on your computer, tape them to the side of the computer, or put them on a bulletin board in your room or on your car dashboard, wherever you do your thinking and stewing and writing for your sermon, and have those people in mind as you do your work. Don't preach in the abstract. Preach to those people. It's especially helpful if those are people who are in pain or they have anxiety, issues that you know about, and you think, is what I'm preparing to speak to them of any consolation? Is it good news in any way for them? It's good practice to make sure that you're saying something meaningful. Secondarily, we'll be thinking about content, how to begin to shape the sermon, beginning with a single generative idea, a sermon's focus, and what the sermon hopes to accomplish, which is the sermon's function. And we'll see that all of this is deeply connected to listening to the text, interrogating it, to congregational and cultural contexts, and it's deeply connected to the form or the shape that a sermon will take. You may wish to begin this unit by reading a short poem by H. Grady Davis from Design for Preaching. The poem is called Design for a Sermon, which is full, I think, of beauty and insight about what a sermon can or even should be. And then please do the rest of the reading, Tom Long, Sally Brown, Luke Powery, St. Augustine, Scott Jose, and then look to our 3 practice exercises. The first one has to do with writing focus and function statements for the sermon that you're working on. I've found that this is quite a bit harder than it seems, so we're going to rely on one another to help get better at it. So you will submit your function and focus statements for your sermon by Thursday, and then they will be sent to your peers for feedback, and you'll also receive work from your classmates for you to give feedback on. Now, this means that this is the first assignment we've had that there's a hard deadline. In other assignments, I don't care that much whether you turn something in late, but on this one, you must turn it in on time or your grade will be diminished if you don't do that. Now, as we began to talk about last time, the thing about focus and function statements that is so helpful for preachers, especially new preachers, is that we thrill to the discovery in the exegetical process, and we want to cram all of that insight into the sermon, and that's a mistake. What you're looking for is not a travelogue for the whole trip through the entire forest. What you're looking for is one coherent path through the text. I have found one way that helps me to discern this focus is to write down sharp, appealing sermon titles for all the possible sermons that I might preach, and then I prayerfully choose the particular sermon that God wants my congregation to hear this week. To help inspire you in this task, you might want to download a copy of that image of a path through the forest and tape it to your computer when you're preparing your sermon. So in the end, after you tape these things on your computer that I've suggested, your sermon setup might look something like this. The second assignment is an exercise in empathetic imagination. It's a way for us to knock ourselves off center, to put ourselves in the shoes of people in our congregation, in particular, people who aren't like us. And finally, the third exercise, the show, don't just tell exercise, is one students often find very difficult but very rewarding. I'm persuaded it may be one of the most important exercises that I hope you'll learn and take with you into your regular preaching life. I've allotted 2 hours in the course calculator for you to do this assignment, so please give it your very best efforts. In the second half of this module, in Learning Unit 2, we'll begin to think about homiletic form, and there's another video to watch there. And we'll do all right, let's start pulling some of this stuff together assignment, a short itch-scratch homily. Ideally, I'd like you to preach this homily to one another in small groups, but we really don't have the time for that, so I'd like instead for you to write this briefly, carefully put together homily using the rules that I outline in the assignment prompt. Then you'll get and give feedback on this homily, and finally, video record it and submit it online. Detailed instructions are available on Canvas in the appropriate assignment prompts, but let me know if you have any questions. And indeed, this assignment too has a hard deadline in it, so you do need to submit that on time. Go with God.